Hello and welcome, IOD community. It's been quite a while since the days of yore when you last heard from those pesky little elf sisters. And a little birdie told us you're long overdue for a community making challenge. But never fear, your IOD artisans are here. We're kicking things off with our Spring Basket Community Making Challenge, where we invite you to go wherever your creative heart desires. There will be prizes for Best Traditional Basket, Most Creative, and more. And what exactly counts as a basket? Well, that's up for interpretation too. In fact, stick around until the very end of today's video to see just what Jonathan Mark Mendez gets up to with a trash basket. Yes, you heard that right, a trash basket. This video series is here to inspire you and share tips not only for creating your basket, but styling it beautifully in your own home, whether that's on a table or wherever your creativity leads. All the details on how to participate are linked in the description below, including how to submit your project and vote. We're even trying a new voting platform this time where you'll be able to see all of your fellow creators' work in one place and cheer them on. You'll be able to find all the links to follow our featured IOD artisans on their own channels below as well, and they really do love it when you do. Be sure to leave a comment too. If they're here during the premiere, they'll respond live, and if not, they'll pop back in later. They really do love to hear from you. If you're loving this premiere format, tell us what you'd like to see next, because we're definitely planning on doing more. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into our first tutorial. We hope you enjoy this. We're so excited to bring this community making challenge to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and for today's IOD artisan collaboration, I started off with this beautiful rectangular basket that I found at the Goodwill bins. And I actually passed it up at first, but something about its shape and size just made me go back and grab it. And I truly felt like it was the perfect anchor piece for a layered vignette. So today, that is exactly what we're doing. I'm going to be upcycling a few other thrifted finds using the IOD transfer called Menagerie, and then we're gonna pull all of it together. So I grabbed a whole bunch of my favorite vintage finds, the upcycled pieces that you're gonna see me upcycle in today's video, and we are gonna create a beautiful spring tablescape. I'm super excited to bring you along, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think. Like I said, as soon as I saw the shape of this basket, I knew it would be the perfect foundation for a vignette. Its long rectangular design really helps ground the entire display and gives me a base to build layers around it. To help build this vignette, I am going to be upcycling a few thrifted items in today's video. I started with a simple book stack and added a few decorative details using IOD's Waltz stamp and the transfer called Menagerie. This is a great way to take something ordinary and give it that collected vintage feel. Next, I'm upcycling a small riser to add a little height and dimension to this vignette. Adding different levels helps create visual interest and makes the display feel more layered. And finally, I created this piece of artwork using IOD's transfer called Menagerie. And one of the things I love most is to create my own custom artwork, because pieces like that you truly won't find anywhere else, and it brings personality into your home. This custom piece of artwork pulls everything together in this vignette. Now it's time to bring everything together. I start by placing the basket as the base of the vignette, and then slowly begin layering in each of the pieces. As I build the vignette, I like to add items one at a time, adjusting the placement until everything feels balanced. Adding that riser really helped bring height to the arrangement, and then after I layered in that book stack, I began adding the rest of the pieces. I like to work in odd numbers whenever possible, like the 3 vintage flower frogs that I used on the riser. I also try to spread color throughout the vignette so the eye moves around your display. Adding a bit of greenery always helps soften everything and brings life into the arrangement. And I love mixing in different textures too, so from the white ironstone to a little bit of that rusty, crusty vintage character. This is honestly always my favorite part, when everything finally comes together. I love layering vintage pieces with a few upcycled elements that I created with the help of IOD. All those little details really help bring a vignette to life. I want to thank you all for joining me today for this IOD artisan collaboration. And I loved how I was challenged to start with just a basket, and I found this one at the Goodwill bins. And then I loved how I just started building a layered spring vignette using some of my favorite items along with those upcycled pieces that I created today. And what I really love about IOD products, you guys, is how beautifully they blend with vintage finds. You know, in the vignette, I incorporated ironstone, butter pats, some old vintage bottles. Oh my gosh, those old flower frogs, and all those beautiful details along with those IOD elements that I added on those upcycled pieces just truly brought that whole vignette together. So I hope that I have inspired you to go and create something beautiful of your own, and I can't wait to see what that is. And again, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I cannot wait to see you guys in the next video. Bye!
Hi everybody, I'm Lisa from Sweet and Sassy Treasures. I'm one of your IOD artisans, and I'd like to welcome you to the Easter Basket Challenge. For today's video, I'm using 4 IOD molds. I'm using the Frames mold, Le Lapin, Trimmings 3, and Victoriana. I cannot wait to show you guys what I came up with. Remember, all of these products can be found by visiting your local stockist, and let's get started. I started with a 6-inch plastic Easter egg that you can get this time of year at any craft store, and I wanted to glue it shut. Now, it didn't twist really well, so I kind of had to tap it. And then I used a fine grit sandpaper just to take the shine down. To make sure the paint would stick, I mixed some plaster of Paris into my paint, and then I brushed it on the egg, and it covered really well. Here I'm using the Frames mold. I'm dusting it with cornstarch, and then I'm using the IOD air dry clay, and I'm using that micro rim to make sure that I have a nice level amount of clay. I flip it over, peel back the mold, and the impression is beautiful. I used just a portion of one of the bunnies from the Le Lapin mold, and I wanted to layer it on top of the frame, so I put the bunny face down and tapped it so I would get an impression. And then I just took my fingernail, I trimmed off the excess clay, and then I smoothed it. Now I'm going to attach these 2 molds. I used Titebond Quick and Thick to attach the Frames mold. When you're applying to a curved surface, you want to work with the clay while it's still really wet. You want to gently coax the edges to line up with the sides of your surface, which is what I'm doing here. Once I was sure that the frame was attached well, I went and attached the bunny. His ears were a little bit longer, but I really liked that, and I made sure that he was centered. Just a little note, the clay on the front makes this a little front heavy, so you'll have to be creative how you support your egg while you're working. I used one of the bows from the Victoriana mold and put it where the bottom of the bunny met the frame, and it was perfect. I used the Trimmings 3 mold to trim out either side of the egg. I was careful again to make sure that I had glue completely covering the back of it, and then I worked the edges while it was drying so it would conform to the curved surface on the egg. I used the tassels from the Victoriana mold, and I attached one set to the right-hand side, and then for the left-hand side, I separated them so that the longer tassel was on the left and the shorter one was on the right, and that way they would be mirror images of one another. I started by painting the frame and the bunny with an off-white mineral acrylic paint. That's going to make it really easy for me to do a gray wash in a future step. When I was done with that, I used the same type of paint in a really pretty blue for the first coat on the outside of my egg. In this step, I am using a chalk-based paint in a gray. I'm covering the frame and the bunny because I want the gray to sit in the low points of the bunny to give him some detail, as well as in the frame. Once that dried, I took a baby wipe and I wiped back. I didn't wipe back completely, but I wiped back to reveal some of the high points. I'm using a darker gray mineral acrylic paint to paint the bow and around the frame of the bunny. And then I will go in and I'll paint the trim pieces and the tassels in that same gray color. I wanted to create some highlights, so I used the white acrylic mineral paint and I dry brushed and kind of blended over the top of the gray area, not covering completely because I want those shadows to come through. And then I dry brushed a little bit over everything that I just painted gray. It's all about creating layers of paint for interest. To create a little bit of depth on the egg, I went over my first color with a similar shade, but it had a little bit more gray in it, so it will give some shadows to the egg. I wanted to introduce heavier shadows, so I'm using that medium gray paint and I'm blending around the frame, around the bunny ears, just to give it a little bit more depth. I also use that same color of paint with a liner brush to darken in his nose and his whiskers and just a little bit of the detail on his face along with his eyes. Here I'm using the white antiquing gel I spoke of earlier, and I'm using a baby wipe to wipe that back while it's still wet. And I did that everywhere that there was blue paint. The finishing touches are my favorite part. I'm using a gold metallic paint, and I'm more dry brushing, heavier in some spots. I'm using this paint on the frame and the tassels and the trimmings pieces and the bows. To help give that aged look, I'm dry brushing some of the white paint here and there over the gold frame and all of the other gold pieces. It helps it give a cohesive look, and it also adds highlights and interest to the egg. My little bunny was definitely missing something, so I found this crown that I had. I painted it gold, I added some crystals, and dry brushed it white. And now I'm going to glue it so that he can be majestic. Because this is an Easter basket challenge, I wanted to challenge myself, so I'm using a sugar bowl that I've had in my storage. I put some styrofoam in the bottom so that I could attach the egg, and then I added a layer of Spanish moss. I'm using some hot glue. I'm gluing it generously. This egg is a little bit front heavy, and I hold it in place until it dries. I like to use the end of a paintbrush to help me tuck in some Spanish moss. Once it was attached, I added more of it to the back of the egg, and then to really finish it off, I decided to use the top of the sugar bowl to give him the top of a basket. I used some vintage seam binding to tie a bow, and he's done. I really hope that this inspires you to try your own out-of-the-box thinking Easter basket.
This was such a fun project. I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. I hope that you'll participate in the Easter Basket Challenge. It doesn't have to be complicated, just have fun. Happy creating, everybody.
Hi, I'm Lynn from L&J Goods. Welcome into my cottage home and to the IOD Easter Basket Challenge. Welcome into our cottage home where we live in a very small space, so I need to be really thoughtful about the types of decor items that I bring into our home so that I can use them in lots of different ways. I will show you how I used 3 different decor items that I created with IOD stamps, transfers, and molds, and I'll show you various ways that I will use these items in this basket in our cottage home. I picked up these eggs at a hobby store, and I'm going to show you how to create 2 completely different looks using IOD molds and IOD transfers. These are porcelain eggs that I picked up at a big box craft store. I have applied a bonding primer followed by a paint with a built-in top coat. I've applied the paint with a sponge to give it a little bit of texture, and then I added some spatters with brown and white paint. This is IOD's Whispering Willows transfer. I've grabbed the bunny and a few florals, and I will apply those over the egg. When I'm applying a transfer over a curved surface like this egg, I like to trim into the transfer. These cuts are going to help me to shape the transfer around the egg. I'll also look for places that I can overlap the transfer for a smooth transition of the design. Once you have burnished the transfer to assure that you have complete adhesion, apply a water-based top coat. One of the ways that I get the most use out of the decor items that I make is to use them with vintage and antique items that I already own. In the cottage entryway, I'll use the bunny egg to create a different look, a vignette that's just a bit pared down. This is a clear vase that I picked up from a dollar store. With just a few simple techniques, I'll turn this clear dollar store vase into the vintage transfer wear look that I love so much. I love antique transferware, and I wanted to try to recreate the look of beautiful green transferware that I've seen in antique shops. I've applied a bonding primer, and then because I'm going to be using IOD stamps, I've selected a white chalk style paint and applied 2 coats of that over the vase. In order to arrange a symmetric design on the vase, I'm using the IOD thin mount to measure and mark the vase in quarters. This is the new IOD stamp called Palais de Fleurs. I have applied it textured side up on an IOD thin mount. Ink the stamp with IOD's New Grass ink. Clean off any ink that may have gotten on the thin mount. Use the thin mount to apply the stamp onto the curved surface. Once the stamp has been applied, hold it in place without shifting and then rub over the entire stamp to transfer the ink. The butterflies found in IOD's Countryside Memoirs stamp set are the perfect final touch for my vase. To add a further vintage effect, I'm using a sepia-toned ink for a random application of the crackle from the Vintage Textures stamp. Last, I applied a satin finish top coat over the entire vase. I love this vase for holding a big batch of tulips, but I can also use it in my tabletop Easter basket vignette. This egg is first going to be styled in my Easter basket tray with some white ironstone, some plates, a couple of spoons, and a few napkins. With its soft neutral tones, this tray blends beautifully into any space, but it's especially perfect for displaying on my kitchen island. Or, in just a jiffy, I can pair it with the bunny egg and add that to the vignette in my entryway with the Easter egg tree. Now I'm going to style the basket to use in our living area. I'll be using lots of antique books, scrolls of paper, and some flameless candles for a very simple arrangement that I can put on a tabletop. I really enjoyed showing you some of the ways that I use Iron Orchid designs in my home. I love creating and I love using IOD to create very special handmade pieces for a cozy cottage home. You can find all of the IOD supplies that I used in the description box below. I can't wait to see what you do with your IOD supplies. If you check out ironorchiddesigns.com and the stockist locator, you can find an IOD stockist that's closest to you.
Hey there, IOD community. In today's premiere, we have a few projects to inspire you for the upcoming basket competition. The idea is to try and think out of the box. In this case, try and think inside the baskets. So let's dive into my project. For my basket project, I've decided to create a cloche. I'm going to bring one or two items together. The first item is the brand new wooden oval blank from IOD. Now this is a great wooden surface to use transfers, molds and a whole lot more. But in this case, I'm going to add a litter basket to the top. So this is a really pliable litter basket. You can bend it and manipulate it into a shape. And what I hope is to push it into an oval at the base. And then the top section, we're going to trim the basket to cinch it in. And also we're going to be adding a candlestick. Now this is just a thrifted candlestick. I think it's probably resin, and I'm going to cut it with a saw and apply it to the base of my oval wooden blank. To embellish my pedestal cloche project, I've pulled out the brand new swags and wreath molds, and I'm thinking this swags will work perfectly around the edge of the wooden blank, just swagging all the way around the perimeter to really make this feel completely as one with the candlestick and the pedestal base. To create the dome effect of my cloche, I've decided to do a little bit of stitching with some floral wire. So I've weaved in and out of all of those little openings, and I'm pulling the wire really tight to bring all of that litter basket into a central point, leaving one small opening ready for an embellishment that is going to sit over the top to make this all nice and neat. Once I had manipulated my litter basket to the perfect shape to sit on my wooden blank, it was now time to think about the opening at the top and how we might cover that up. So I have one or two items that I've taken off old light fitments. So this was like a candle sconce with a bulb that would have sat in the middle, but I'm going to use this circular disc because it has the perfect curvature to fit on the inside to make for a very nice clean connection. And of course there is a hole in the center so we can attach another fitment through that. This is another light fitment from an old brass chandelier. I'm going to place that on the top, and that will also cover up the basket edges. So I also am going to use some furniture handles. So I have a couple of elements from different furniture handles, which I'm going to screw it all together as a nice tight fit. And I think that makes for a really good job. To create the pedestal with my candlestick, I have sawn through the resin candlestick. It was pretty easy, but as you can see, it's hollow at the top. So we're going to need some strong glue to attach this to our oval round. So I've decided to use two different types of glue to fix the candlestick to the oval wooden round. The first glue is E6000, which I'm placing in the internal cavity, and the second glue is super glue with a spray activator. So the super glue will be sprayed with the activator and it will go off very, very quickly. Meanwhile, the E6000 will fall back onto the oval wooden round and set over time. Now time to cast some of those decorative mouldings for my project. So I'm using a fast acting resin. This should go off within 10-15 minutes. It is a simple 50-50 ratio mix and it is black. So I've opted for the black colour just to eliminate some of the decorative finishes that I might do later. So I am planning to distress this project, and should it come back to the resin colour, it will be black underneath. Once I had all of my elements cast and ready for application to my pedestal, I took the resin molds and slightly heated them up with a heat gun so they were slightly more flexible and ready for the application. This time around, a different type of glue, tight bond, quick and thick, makes for an easy job. To tie the whole project together, I took one or two of the other elements from the Swags and Wreaths mold and applied them to the top of my cloche, and the little delicate bows as well from that mold really makes a wonderful extra to the candlestick base. Well, I could not be more happier with my pedestal with all of the decorative embellishments. So to move forward, I'm going to add a touch of a base coat to this project. I'm going to take it outside of my studio and give it a coat of black spray paint to consolidate all of the colour that lies underneath, and then we're going to add another paint finish over the top and then distress. So here it is, all painted black. I'm now going to use a chalk style paint and paint it a soft grey shade over the whole piece, and then we'll do a little bit of distressing and colour washing just to add a real touch of vintage to our cloche pedestal. after applying my white colour wash and wet distressing the project, I decided to go in with clear wax and a touch of dark wax to add a touch of age and patina. For the second half of my project, I wanted to add a little bit of whimsy to the cloche. So I'm going to be using Iron Orchids Designs air dry clay, and what I hope to fashion is a little woodland scene by creating some handmade mushrooms using the air dry clay. Now I do know that Iron Orchid Design has a mushroom mold, so check out your local stockist by finding that on the Iron Orchid Design website. At the top there is a ready orange button which will give you a retailer finder. So to create my mushrooms, I'm just balling that clay into a circle, and then I'm going to push it into a sort of dome shape in the palm of my hand and kind of pressing down the edges just to manipulate that clay to a mushroom cap. Then I'm going to take my palette knife and just score the underneath to create mushroom sort of marks underneath, and then we will create the base of the mushroom by rolling out another ball of clay into a sausage shape and fashion that into the base of the mushroom. I'm going to keep these two elements as separate elements and then glue them together a little later on in the project once it has all dried after a good 24 hours. As you can see, I'm taking my palette knife and creating little marks on the base and kind of manipulating it into an interesting shape, testing out my cap. Yes, everything looks great. So now I have to recreate this probably about 6 times, and I might do a few different variations as well. After 24 hours of drying time with my mushrooms, I am super pleased with the outcome of all of these. They are super sweet and they turned out so beautifully. So to paint the mushrooms, what I'm using is ground coffee. So ground coffee is a wonderful paint stain for air dry clay. So I'm just going to take a few sprinkles of instant coffee and some water, and we're going to stain the mushroom caps with a very watered down version of coffee, and you will see it is the most beautiful shade for this project. Once I have the tops painted, I'm also going to take some of that instant coffee and spritz the top once again and sprinkle a few grains on top. This will give you those wonderful speckles that you see on mushrooms. Underneath the caps, I will be painting them a little bit stronger, so they're a little bit darker. And of course, the bases of each mushroom, they will require a little stain with the coffee as well. To create my woodland scene on my pedestal underneath my cloche, I decided to make it non-permanent by applying the mushrooms to a scrap piece of timber which fits in the centre of that oval. I figure that the cloche and the pedestal could be used throughout the year with different displays. So to glue down to my scrap piece of timber, I'll be using E6000, and I also will be using my hot craft glue just for instant hold to the surface. To finish up the styling of my project, I've decided to use some woodland moss to really add that feel of a woodland scene, and a few other faux greeneries just to add that little extra something to this project. I'm hoping that you've enjoyed my process, and I'm wishing you all the very best for the basket competition. Remember, get creative, find your local stockist for all of your IOD needs by hitting on the retail finder at the top of the Iron Orchid Design website. I look forward to seeing what you all create.
This concludes our IOD Spring Basket Challenge premiere. If you happen to join us a little late and missed the intro, we've just kicked off our Spring Basket Community Making Challenge, where we're inviting the whole IOD community to create their own take on a basket. And yes, baskets are very much open to interpretation. There are prizes for Best Traditional Basket, Most Creative, and more. Plus, we're trying out a brand new voting platform where you'll be able to browse all the incredible entries from your fellow makers and cast your vote. You'll find all the details on how to participate, submit your project, and vote in the description below, along with links to follow our featured IOD artisans on their channels. And before you get started, make sure you found your local IOD stockist using the stockist locator on our website. Just look for the big red Where to Buy button. You can't miss it. We hope you leave inspired today and make something special of your own. We cannot wait to see what it is. And we are so thankful you were able to join us today. Happy making, IOD community.